It was a cold, rainy October day in Little Old Louisville, Kentucky. The sky was blanketed with gray clouds that seemed to hover ominously above the city. Yet despite the chill and dampness that was in the air, there still seemed to be this spark of excitement around. After all, it didn't matter how gloomy the weather was. Nothing was going to deter this young 12-year-old Leo Rising from getting some of his favorite treats. On this particular day, he mounted his brand new red Schwinn bicycle and began pedaling with the kind of youthful energy that only a child with a heart full of adventure could muster. The young Leo Riser's hands gripped the handlebars tightly as he raced through the streets, his heart pounding with anticipation. He had only one goal in mind: to get to the local fair in town. Now, the red Schwinn bicycle that he was riding that day was no ordinary bicycle. It was a special one that was a gift from his father for his 12th birthday. And it was the kind of bike that any boy would have dreamed of owning in 1954. It had a chrome finish, sleek lines, and coveted white-walled tires. But best of all, this bike was a symbol of a boy's newfound independence. As he pedaled faster through the streets, a feeling of exhilaration swept over him. The fair awaited with the promises of free popcorn, candy, and hot dogs. He soon arrived at the auditorium where he parked his bike and rushed into the bustling crowd. The noise of the carnival games, the laughter, and the call of the vendors swept him into a world of happiness. He quickly gobbled up some free popcorn, grabbed a hot dog, and got lost in the action, surrounding himself by the sights and sounds of the event. The day wore on, and the clock slowly ticked forward as the excitement began to settle down. The young Leo Riser decided that it was time to go home. He stopped to get one more bag of free popcorn and headed towards the exit. The little boy returned to where he had parked his bike, but when he got there, he was quite surprised. His prized Schwinn bicycle, the one thing that meant the world to him, was gone. Someone had stolen it. The young Leo Rising stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing. Anger surged through him, sharp and hot. How could anyone do such a thing? His hands clenched into fists and his thoughts immediately turned to revenge. No one took what was his without consequences. No one ever crosses a Leo Rising and gets away with it. And he wasn't just going to stand there. He was going to make sure whoever had taken his bike would pay. He started asking everyone around him where he could find a police officer. After a while, someone pointed him towards Mr. Joe Martin. With determination in his eyes, the young boy made his way to Mr. Joe Martin and demanded justice. When he found the officer, the boy wasted no time explaining his trouble. "That bike was mine," he said, "and whoever took it, they're going to get whooped. They have it coming." Officer Martin chuckled, his warm eyes twinkling with amusement. "Kid, if you want to whoop someone for stealing your bike, you better learn how to throw a punch," he said. "You just might find yourself on the wrong end of that fight." But then, with a knowing grin, the officer leaned in. "Lucky for you," he said, "I happen to own a boxing gym here in town. Come by at night and train with me, and maybe one day you'll be ready to take matters into your own hands." The boy's heart raced at the thought. Boxing, a chance to learn how to fight, to channel his anger and frustration into something powerful. It was too tempting to resist. After all, fighting ran in his blood. At just 18 months old, he flung his arm back and accidentally knocked out his own mother's tooth. His parents knew then that their son was a strong fighter. The young Leo Rising took the officer's offer. Training became his new obsession. He didn't just train, he pushed himself beyond his limits. And at a mere 89 pounds, the young boy stepped into the boxing ring for his first fight. He didn't just compete, he won. And he kept winning, and winning some more. But you see, this was all a part of the plan. He had it in his mind that he was destined to be the greatest, and no one, absolutely no one, was going to stop him. His dedication was unmatched. He'd run beside the school bus on his way to school. And when he got to school, Miss Carter, his teacher, warned him that nothing good ever did come from fighting. But that only made him more determined. He didn't need validation from anyone. His vision was clear. At the age of only 18, he boarded a plane bound for Rome, Italy, where he was going to fight in the Olympics. And he did. And he won. At 18, he became an Olympic gold medalist. But the story didn't end there. Mrs. Carter, who had once told him nothing good could come from fighting, reached out to him after his victory. She asked if he would come back to his hometown and speak at the YWCA. This young Leo Riser didn't hesitate. Not only did he make the speech for Mrs. Carter, but he also wrote a $10,000 check that very day to support her cause. That very day, children who needed it the most benefited from this young man's generosity. And that was the moment Mrs. Carter learned her lesson. Fighting for this young man had indeed led to something good. So who was this determined 12-year-old boy eager to seek out justice for his stolen bike? Well, it was none other than Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr., better known as Muhammad Ali, the Olympic gold medalist, the heavyweight champion of the world, the man who defeated Joe Frazier, the man who would go down in history as one of the greatest athletes to ever live. And now you know what is up, my buttercup.